Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Let's see who comes in and says hello. See if I'm popular today. See if YouTube has green gods on me. Hi, how you doing? What's going on in your part of the world? Shame what for? It's a shame Ukraine's under attack, isn't it, guys? Big shame.
The thing is, they don't really want it, though, do they?
No, they never have.
It's just one person who keeps losing it.
Yeah. Edit this. Edit the time.
Or from the
Oh, have I got that? Ukraine? UKR. Quick. You've got a phone on charge in the bedroom carpet.
I know it's UK something, RA something.
RAINIR line. Ukraine.
Rain, RAIN.
But I think there was an E on the end. Go to double check. Will it just grab one of the other deck chairs?
There's a lot of it on Facebook.
There's a lot of it on YouTube.
UK,
Mm-hmm.
RA,
Mm-hmm.
INE.
Yay! I got it right.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. That is a fair decision. Ukraine didn't want this war. They didn't want the fight. They were peaceful, very peaceful. But tell me your views on everything which is going on over there. Why even though it's a former Soviet state, but President Putin, I reckon he's just on a power trip. power trip. And if somebody doesn't stop him, he's going to try and take over the world again. Like Nazi Lord. Kill the Nazis, kill the Nazis, Hitler.
Oh yeah. This is okay.
NK.
Little one then. Ukraine definitely didn't want this war. Feel sorry for them. I just flee their country because of one man. Just because of one man. Wait, my boss will fucking shut up as well. But I'll be sending them to Ukraine. I'll just quick picture of down the hallway. To the shed. Switch back once more.
Oh my god, some one's giving birth over in Ukraine. A woman 23 gives birth to daughter as she shelters with terrified Ukrainians.
Which one's that? What's that? Because the remote for the TV's not working again. You might have got the remote on it. Right. No. Has it? Or is it? Or is it in your line which doesn't have it? Yeah, fuck off. Don't come back. There's like fucking 12 people living downstairs. In a 2-bedroom apartment. Ridiculous. That's cozy properties for you. Cozy homes. Cozy lets, cozy properties, whatever they want to call themselves.
Mm.
Like let the pigs out in the farm. Let the big pigs to roam about in the farm today or tonight. What's that? Ooh.
Who you know I went to school with.
Ooh.
You know the you know at my dad's. You've got the houses in there.
Yeah.
Right, you know the one that's overtook the back bit of the garden? With
Yeah.
all the long truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, him. That's his dad that's done all that. But that is his son. Yeah, no, that's what all the Ukrainians are doing tonight.
Subways.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see when downstairs fucking made me a coffee. Yeah. Do you realise what you tried offering me before that? At that time of morning.
Mm.
Fucking bottle of beer. I was like, no, I don't fucking drink. Mate, look like the type to have a good ass drink, but I don't touch a drop of drink. I like the stuff.
Nah, that's all I keep seeing out there is fucking beer bottles, fucking on the window ledges down there. All I can see is fucking beer bottles. And they've got a kid in the house. It's what annoys me.
This one's like, oh, you can have it back. I just want to see if it has the remote on it.
You don't, this one don't.
Fucking head in.
Oh yeah, it does. JVC.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Oh shit. It's not the Wi-Fi.
Hmm?
I'll find it.
Fuck off. That's a bit weird. Two cars stop at the same point and now have gone off together. Oh no, one's gone into a driveway again.
So that's a 43% low. You can have it straight back up.
Do you want to make me fuck? Yeah, it's alright. Mm.
My story is not impossible because I am
Richard Barron's there. Now, a significant story is breaking tonight regarding Germany and the supply of weapons to Ukraine. Security and Defence Editor Deborah Haynes is here in Kiev. So what have Germany decided to do?
Well, Germany, which remember was the country that didn't back sending lethal aid to Ukraine up until this conflict, has just announced that it's going to send 1,000 anti-tank missiles and 500 Stinger missiles, which are the sort of surface-to-air missiles that a soldier can carry and launch from the shoulder. It's a huge, significant reversal of policy by a country that has until now resisted lethal aid for Ukraine, something that the UK, the US, Canada had been doing, providing these anti-tank weapons, ammunition to the country. It's the single thing that Ukraine needs most. And it comes after the Defence Secretary, the British Defence Secretary, yesterday hosted a conference of nations, there were about 25 nations there. He spoke to 2 others as well, trying to get everyone to sort of sign up to give military aid, such as weapons and also medical supplies. And also the UK has said that it would help with the delivery of these supplies. Remember, this is a war zone, it's not easy just to get stuff in. But this is a huge development by Germany. And it also shows that how Russia's actions here in Ukraine, in defiance of Western warnings, has done something that since the Cold War has never happened in terms of galvanizing, really genuinely galvanizing the NATO alliance to actually do real action. They did do it after 2014 in terms of mobilizing forces more, spending more on their defense budgets, but it wasn't enough to deter Russia's malign activities. And so tonight, this real strengthening of policy and posturing by Germany.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hugely significant political moment for Germany, isn't it?
So this Germany, traditionally, it has had close ties with Russia, very, very important economic ties. So have countries like Hungary, like Italy, all members of NATO, but all with slightly different policies towards Russia than, for example, the Baltic states, which are very hawkish, and the UK and the US that have a very strong line about relatively strong line about standing up to Russian threats. So yes, a significant move by Germany. Also, the Ukrainian president said that France too had said it was going to send in weapons. We've heard from the Netherlands that they're going to be sending in Stinger missiles. This country, the armed forces here, have succeeded in slowing, at least, the Russian advance. We don't want to overplay it, but we heard from the British Armed Forces Minister this morning saying that Russia has not achieved its objectives. And this is an invading force. It has limited time to be able to achieve those objectives until its supplies run out.
Okay, Deborah, thank you very much indeed.
The mobile network that you can embed social media and video that doesn't eat your data on just £12 a month.
Shortly after 4 o'clock this morning, I spoke to President Zelensky of Ukraine as the first missiles struck his beautiful and innocent country and its brave people, and I assured him of the unwavering support of the United Kingdom. And I can tell the House that at this stage, Ukrainians are offering a fierce defense of their families and their country. And I know that every honourable member will share my admiration for their resolve. Earlier today, President Putin delivered another televised address and offered the absurd pretext that he sought the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. In fact, he is hurling the might of his military machine against a free and peaceful neighbour in breach of his own explicit pledge and every principle of civilized behaviour between states. spurning the best efforts of this country and our allies to avoid bloodshed. For this, Putin will stand condemned in the eyes of the world and of history. He will never be able to cleanse the blood of Ukraine from his hands. And although the UK and our allies tried every avenue for diplomacy until the final hour, I'm driven to conclude that Putin was always determined to attack his neighbour, no matter what we did. Now we see him for what he is, a blood-stained aggressor who believes in imperial conquest. I am proud that Britain did everything within our power to help Ukraine prepare for this onslaught, and we will do our utmost to offer more help as our brave friends defend their homeland. Our embassy took the precaution on 18th of February of relocating from Kiev to the city of Lviv in western Ukraine, where our ambassador Melinda Simmons continues to work with the Ukrainian authorities and to support British nationals. Now we have a clear mission: diplomatically, politically, economically, and eventually militarily, this hideous and barbarous venture of Vladimir Putin must end in failure. At the G7 meeting this afternoon, we agreed to work in unity to maximize the economic price that Putin will pay for his aggression. And this must include ending Europe's collective dependence on Russian oil and gas. That has served to empower Putin for too long. So I welcomed again Chancellor Scholz's excellent decision to halt the certification of Nord Stream 2. Mr. Speaker, countries that together comprise about half the world economy are now engaged in maximizing pressure, economic pressure, on one that makes up a mere 2%. For our part today, the UK is announcing the largest, most severe package of economic sanctions that Russia has ever seen. With new financial measures, we're taking new powers to target Russian finance, in addition to the banks we've already sanctioned this week. Today, in concert with the United States, we are imposing a full asset freeze on BTB. More broadly, these powers will enable us totally to exclude Russian banks from the UK financial system, which is of course by far the largest in Europe, stopping them from accessing sterling and clearing payments through the UK. And with around half of Russia's trade currently in US dollars and sterling, I'm pleased to tell the House that the United States is taking similar measures. These powers will also enable us to ban Russian state and private companies from raising funds in the UK, banning dealing with their securities, and making loans to them. We will limit the amount of money that Russian nationals will be able to deposit in their UK bank accounts, and sanctions will also be applied to Belarus for its role in the assault on Ukraine. Overall, we'll be imposing asset freezes on more than 100 new entities and individuals, on top of the hundreds that we've already announced. This includes all the major manufacturers that support Putin's war machine. Furthermore, we are also banning Aeroflot from the UK.
Financially.
Next, on top of these financial measures and in full concert with the United States and the EU, we will introduce new trade restrictions and stringent export controls similar to those that they in the US are implementing. We will bring forward new legislation to ban the export of all dual-use items to Russia, including a range of high-end and critical technological equipment and components in sectors including electronics, telecommunications, and aerospace. Legislation to implement this will be laid early next week. These trade sanctions will constrain Russia's military, industrial, and technological capabilities for years to come. We're bringing forward measures on unexplained wealth orders from the Economic Crime Bill to be introduced before the House rises for Easter. And we will set out further detail before Easter on the range of policies to be included in the full bill in the next session, including on reforms to Companies House and the Register of Overseas Property Ownership. We will set up a new dedicated Agency to target sanctions evasion and corrupt Russian assets hidden in the UK, and that means oligarchs in London will have nowhere to hide.
And
And
Russian
Mr. Speaker, I know that this House
assets.
will have great interest in the potential of cutting Russia out
Oh,
from SWIFT.
I might have to just
And
re-listen to that.
I can confirm, as I've always said, that nothing is off the table. The company's house and a register of overseas property ownership. We will set up a new dedicated kleptocracy cell in the National Crime Agency to target sanctions evasion and corrupt Russian assets hidden in the UK, and that means oligarchs in London will have nowhere to hide. And Mr. Speaker, I know that this House will have great interest in the potential of cutting Russia out from SWIFT. And I can confirm, as I've always said,
Which is the World
that
Bank
nothing
order.
is off the table. But for all these measures to be successful, it is vital that we have the unity
No, it just
of
means
our partners,
they're
the
now an
unity
isolated
in the
country.
G7 and other fora.
What, Russia's
And,
now an isolated country?
Mr. Speaker, Russian investors are already delivering their verdict on the wisdom of Putin's actions. And so far today, Russian stocks are down by as much as 45%, wiping $250 billion from their value in the biggest one-day decline on record. Sberbank, Russia's biggest lender, is down by as much as 45%, and Gazprom down by as much as 39%, while the ruble has plummeted to record lows against the dollar. We will continue on a remorseless mission to squeeze Russia from the global economy piece by piece, day by day, and week by week. And we will, of course, use Britain's position in every international forum to condemn the onslaught against Ukraine, and we will counter the Kremlin's blizzard of lies and disinformation by telling the truth about Putin's war of choice and his war of aggression. And we will work with our allies on the urgent need to protect other European countries that are not members of NATO and who could become targets of Putin's playbook of subversion and aggression. And we will resist any creeping temptation to accept what Putin is doing today as a fait accompli. There can be no creeping normalization, not now, not in the months to come, not in the years ahead. We must strengthen NATO's defences still further. And so today I called for a meeting of NATO leaders, which will take place tomorrow, and I will be convening the countries that contribute to the Joint Expeditionary Force, which is led by the United Kingdom and comprises both NATO and non-NATO members. Last Saturday, I warned that this invasion would have global economic consequences, and this morning the oil price has risen strongly. The government will do everything possible to safeguard our own people from the repercussions for the cost of living. And of course, we stand ready to protect our country from any threats, including in cyberspace. Above all, the House will realise the hard and heavy truth that we now live in a continent where an expansionist power, deploying one of the world's most formidable military machines, is trying to redraw the map of Europe in blood and conquer an independent state by force of arms. And it's vital for the safety of every nation that Putin's squalid venture should ultimately fail and be seen to fail. However long it takes, that will be the steadfast and unflinching goal of the United Kingdom. I hope of every member of this House and every one of our great allies, certain that together we have the power and the will to defend the cause of peace and justice as we have always done. And I say to the people of Russia, again, whose president has just authorized an onslaught against a fellow Slavic people. I cannot believe that this horror is being done in your name, or that you really want the pariah status that these actions will bring to the Putin regime. And to our Ukrainian friends, in this moment of agony, I say that we are with you and we are on your side. Your right to choose your own destiny is a right that the United Kingdom and our allies will always defend. And in that spirit, I join you in saying Slava Ukraini, and I commend this statement to the House.
I now call the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In this dark hour, our thoughts, our solidarity, and our resolve are with the Ukrainian people. Invading troops march through their streets. Missiles shell their cities. They've been cast into a war through no fault of their own, because Putin fears their freedom, and because he knows that no people will choose to live under his bandit rule unless forced to do so at the barrel of a gun. The consequences of Putin's war of aggression will be horrendous and tragic for the people of Ukraine, but also for the Russian people who've been plunged into chaos by a violent elite who have stolen their wealth, stolen their chance of democracy, and stolen their future. And we must prepare ourselves for difficulties here. We will face economic pain as we free Europe from dependence on Russian gas and oil and clean our institutions from money stolen from the Russian people. But the British public have always been willing to make sacrifice to defend democracy on our continent, and we will again. The consequences of Putin's actions will be felt throughout the world for years, and I fear for decades to come. Russia's democratic neighbours and every other democracy that lives in the shadow of autocratic power are watching their worst nightmare unfold. So all of us who believe in democracy over dictatorship, in the rule of law over the reign of terror, in freedom over the jackboot of tyranny, must unite and take a stand. We must support the Ukrainian people in their fight, and we must ensure that Putin fails. Putin will eventually learn the same lesson that European tyrants learned in the last century, that the resolve of the world is harder than he imagined, that the people's desire for freedom burns brighter than he can ever extinguish, and that the light of liberty will prevail over his darkness. For that to happen, we must make a clean break with the failed approach to handling Putin, which after Georgia, after Crimea, after Donbass, has fed his belief that the benefits of aggression outweigh the costs. We must finally show him that he is wrong. That means doing all that we can to help Ukraine defend herself by providing weapons, equipment, and financial assistance, as well as humanitarian support for the Ukrainian people. We must urgently reinforce and reassure our NATO allies in Eastern Europe, who now stand at the frontier of Putin's aggression. And the hardest possible sanctions must be taken against the Putin regime. It must be isolated, its finances frozen, its ability to function crippled. That means excluding Russia from the financial mechanisms like SWIFT and banning trade in Russian sovereign debt. I welcome the set of sanctions outlined by the Prime Minister just now and pledge opposition support for further measures. And there are changes we must make here in the UK.
Yeah, I bet that's going to be
For
like
too
the
long,
fucking
our
Ukrainians
country
are
has been a
coming
safe haven for the money that Putin and his fellow bandits stole from the Russian people. It must now change. cracking open the shell companies in which stolen money is hidden will require legislation. Bring it forward immediately, Prime Minister, and Labour will support it, along with the other measures that the Prime Minister has just outlined. Thank you, and we will support it. Mr. Speaker, this must be a turning point in history. We must look back and say that this terrible day was actually when Putin doomed himself and doomed his plan to reassert Russian force as a means of controlling Eastern Europe to defeat. We know how Putin operates, so we know how to defeat him. He seeks division, so we must stand united. He hopes for inaction, so we must take a stand. He believes that we are too corrupted to do the right thing, so we must prove him wrong. I believe we can, and in this dark hour, we can step towards the light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
I want to say how grateful I am to the Right Honourable Gentleman for the terms in which he has just spoken and the robust support that he is offering to the government and to the Western Alliance, Mr. Speaker, at a very, very difficult time. And I think the whole House can be turning to some of the issues that he raised. Very briefly, I think the whole House can be proud of the role that the UK has played in pioneering military support, logistical support to the Ukrainians, the role that we played in bringing together a ferocious package of sanctions, which we will now implement. And we will bring our allies together, Mr. Speaker, to protect NATO, to show that President Putin will get a tougher Western alliance as a result of his actions, not a weaker Western alliance. And I think, Mr. Speaker, that events will show that the Russian president has profoundly miscalculated. He believes that he is doing this for his own political advantage. I believe the exact opposite will prove to be the case because of the resistance that will be mounted against what he is doing, not just in Ukraine, but around the world. And we will support those Ukrainians, Mr. Speaker. We will support them economically, diplomatically, politically, and yes, militarily as well. And I know that in due time we will succeed.
Theresa May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I welcome my right honourable friend's statement this afternoon? This House and this country are united in our defence of democracy and our support for the Ukrainian people. Vladimir Putin has initiated war in mainland Europe. The response must be unequivocal and absolutely clear. So will my right honourable friend confirm that the government is putting in place every possible economic sanction so that Russia feels absolutely the cold wind of isolation and the Russian people understand that Vladimir Putin has brought their state to a pariah state?
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend that she's absolutely right about what the government is setting out to do, and I do indeed believe that that will be the result for Putin and his cronies.
We now come to the SNP leader.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Prime Minister for an advance copy of the statement, and let me also welcome the very close contact he has kept with the Ukrainian President, of course, importantly, overnight. I was grateful that I had a chance to meet this afternoon with the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK and indeed with Ukrainian MPs. Our thoughts and our support is very much with each and every one of them, as it is with all of the people of Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, although last night's events have been prophesied and predicted for some time, the acts of Russian violence, aggression and tyranny are no less shocking. What we are witnessing is a full-scale invasion. It is an act of war. This is, first and foremost, an unprovoked attack on the peace and the innocence of Ukraine and of its people. But it's equally an attack on international law, an attack on our European democracy, an attack on the peace that our continent has so carefully built over the last 75 years. President Putin, and President Putin alone, bears responsibility for these horrific acts. And it is he and his Kremlin cabal who must pay a massive price for their actions. It is important to say to the Russian people that we know that Putin is not acting in their name. He is a dictator. He is an imperialist. He is a tyrant. He is much a threat to his own people as he is to all of us. Mr. Speaker, this is a moment for unity, and it's especially a moment for European unity. All of the economic sanctions that are now finally being implemented have one clear objective: the complete economic isolation of the Russian state. Can the Prime Minister confirm that this is the objective and that he has agreed that with his international allies? That economic isolation must include sanctions on Putin and his network of oligarchs and agents, their expulsion from countries around the world, sanctions on his banks and their ability to borrow and function, and sanctions on his energy and mineral companies. And as I said yesterday, it must finally mean cleaning up the sewer of dirty Russian money that has been running through the city of London for years. And I know all the complications involved, but can I ask the Prime Minister that the actions that be taken to suspend Russia from the SWIFT payment system, one of the steps that would hit the Putin regime the hardest. But just as we rightly seek to punish Putin, we must redouble our support and solidarity for the Ukrainian people. Can the Prime Minister give further details on the humanitarian aid being deployed and the plans in place to offer refuge and sanctuary where necessary to those that have been displaced? And what plans are in place to evacuate the families of UK citizens currently in Ukraine, given that commercial flights have now stopped? Mr. Speaker, let's not fall for the Kremlin propaganda that they are prepared to soak up any sanctions. If we act now, if the sanctions are targeted enough, swift enough, severe enough, if we impose nothing less than economic isolation,